Hey guys, Liana here. It's Tatas Tuesday, and I'm doing a follow up to the video I did last week because there has been progress. There's been a development, and this looks exactly the same right now. However, when you go down to the link to actually open the document, there is a subtle change. Are you going to work? Oh, you work. There we go. Okay. Instead of saying download the report, it says download report highlights. And I've already done that for you. It's this is what we have now. Instead of this 70-page yellow report that I wasn't allowed to redistribute, we have 4 pages of highlights. Missing from the highlights are any reference to Gamergate, any reference to video games, and any reference to sex workers. And there's more. And this is what's exciting. Yes, it's still trying to gender an issue that is not gendered. However, they are focusing more on the unique character of the harassment that women receive and not making it seem like harassment is something that only happens to women online. And the first reference to that, where is it? Oh, here it is. First reference to that are, women age 18 to 24 are at heightened risk of being exposed to every kind of cyber violence against women. That is true. They are uniquely likely to experience stalking and sexual harassment. That is true. But this is the important part. While also not escaping the high rates of other types of harassment common to young people in general, including physical threats. So they've started to recognize that men get harassed on the internet too. And this is big. This is something that the Broadband Commission is doing that the mainstream media has failed to do. And this is very, very, very important. Okay, there's another more bold reference to that here. An emerging set of antisocial, aggressive, and violent content and behaviors are available to anyone who logs on the internet, regardless of age, gender, culture, or values in the age of the social internet network, blah, blah, blah. This is for people who don't use the internet. But that wasn't expressed so clearly in the original report. That's a big walk back. And remember what I said when I first made this video, that their burden here was to prove this was a gendered problem, and I didn't feel like they'd done that. So other people clearly determined that they hadn't done that either. Now, like I said, there is a unique character to the insults that women get on the internet, the types of threats women get on the internet, and the significant problem that women are more likely to be stalked online. Now, women are more likely to be stalked, or at least report stalking, important distinction there, than men in the real world as well. So that's not surprising, but it may not be an issue that originates on the internet. It's something that needs more work. And I think it's fine to quote the statistic, because the statistic is factual. Those statistics that they're citing there are the ones that I referenced in my video last week. So this is like, wow, it's like writing a list to Santa and not getting toys, but still getting something that kind of makes me happy. Wow, I'm easily impressed. But all the first world, developed world examples of terrible harassment are removed from this. The use things about law enforcement and stuff from India, which I can't corroborate these statistics because there's no sources, but I can believe that India's got a problem with reporting, because India's got far bigger problems than the internet. And you can sort of see they've stripped it right down. Like there's almost nothing left of this thing. The larger concepts are here, but all the supporting documentation is gone. Okay? And the ending, you guys will love this. The gamers watching this will love this, okay? There's a Mass Effect 3 ending. Look, the ending has been reduced to 3 colors. And yes, it's yellow instead of blue, but we have the green ending, the yellow ending, and the red ending. So I think we can call this the Retake Broadband Commission report moment. Um, because, well, I guess there's nothing wrong with these suggestions, with these recommendations. They're crazy vague. Crazy vague. Like, they're pretty common sense stuff that people were kind of saying, yeah, we should do anyway. So the question is, what now? I mean, this is big. This is a major walk back by a major international organization, and I think we finally hit a point where we've done all that mainstream media push, kick the can down the road, kick the ball down the field, all the punting that's been going on in terms of responsibility and getting the story right. A body that actually is accountable to someone. And that's why it crashed into a brick wall and had to pull a reversal. Sloppiness isn't as accepted on this sort of stage. And this has got to be very embarrassing for the Broadband Commission and the people who wrote this report, but it's great for the rest of us, because I'd rather have vagaries that are accurate, right, than a whole bunch of detail that's nonsense. I mean, they were quoting Jack Thompson, for God's sakes. Even Jack Thompson doesn't quote Jack Thompson anymore. And I mean, development of technical solutions promote due diligence and duty to report abuse. Well, what is that? Well, we don't know. And that's fine. Because now we can start figuring out what the crap this stuff means. And we can do it right instead of in the reactive way that the original version of this report did. And that's very exciting to me. I'm glad to see this change. And, I'd love to be part of moving forward on this. I feel like I was sort of a tiny part of moving forward on this. And the corrections have made me feel like I was right in the things I said and the issues I had with the original paper. Now, where we go forward with this is a little interesting, because the thing I was told over and over and over again when I was having to deal with law enforcement unsuccessfully is that there are gaps in our laws. And those are very difficult to change. I mean, obviously, there are more serious crimes that happen all the time. There are people who actually do get physically hurt instead of just getting threatened with being physically hurt. Local police stations are not often set up to deal with cybercrime. And, the RCMP in Canada, the FBI in the US are overstretched. So it's only, the most privileged people that actually get any sort of attention in these cases. And so I think the sanctions one, other than consultations on a cyber civil rights agenda, that's okay. That could be started. But laws, not going to happen anytime soon. Not with the terrorism stuff and all that stuff. Governments have bigger things. The economy sucks. It is not a priority for governments. Like, it's not anywhere. Okay. Europe's got a migrant crisis. We've got a major trade deal here in Canada that just came down today. The US has a mass shooting every few months, and that gets blamed on video games by some people too, even though there's no connection. So the courts, we might be able to clean up the understanding of police and the courts to this stuff. I mean, that's going to come through creating case law, and that's sort of happening as well. But that's going to move very slow. Our better hopes, our Obi-Wan Kenobis here, are on the sensitization and safeguards. I've always felt like these issues, I call it cyberbullying because that's what it is. I don't call it cyber violence because nobody's going to freaking listen to that. But I think the sensitization and safeguards, I wish they'd called them something less mamby-pamby, but they are what's going to get this done. I think that the responsibility of the industry is something that does have to be stressed more. If Twitter was more responsible for the nasty stuff that people do to each other on Twitter, it would stop right away, because it's amazing what liability does. if Twitter was on the hook for the fact that people still manage to keep sending death threats to Anita Sarkeesian, I bet there'd be a lot fewer death threats sent through Twitter to Anita Sarkeesian. Call me crazy, but this just sounds like it makes sense to me, and that doesn't mean necessarily just shutting down people's accounts at random. Like, guys, don't think that I'm advocating censorship over disagreement. I'm talking about the serious, legitimate issues that happen. People getting cranky over an unpopular opinion is not what I'm advocating here. I'm saying that we do, common sense thinking people know the difference between a disagreement and an attack. And too many people take things too far. They freak out. They have an emotional reaction to things, and they say things they shouldn't. I think that I distinguish personally between a safer internet, which I think we can achieve, a more civil internet, which is something I think we should work forward to just because we get more done, and a quieter internet, which personally I think comes down to personal taste. Some people don't want the explosions on Twitter because people got mad at them. I don't mind it the same way, as long as nobody's saying you will be silenced or we'll put your head on a pike or burn the cunt. I keep saying that one because I think it's the funniest threat anyone has ever uttered, just because of that I just imagine like what the image of that, and just a big old vagina roasting on an open fire, like it's just so funny. But I probably shouldn't say that word too much. It offends people. But as long as that stuff's not there, I don't mind people disagreeing. I don't like defamation. I don't like people saying things I haven't said, and I don't like people twisting my words and extrapolating to say, well, she said this, but perhaps she meant that. That's the stuff I don't like, because that is not accurate. That is not fact-based. And I draw a distinction. If people want to tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But, the attempts to make me seem evil are the things that I just don't get. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying these things are criminal. I think these things are problems because the reason defamation is something that's actionable is it actually does infringe on people's free speech. When you're actively trying to silence someone through a campaign of disinformation, that's wrong. And that's where I think, I hate the sensitization. Makes me feel like we're talking about nipples or, like those warming creams that you get with vibrators or something like that. I don't know. It's my nipples are very sensitive. I'd say more like decency, diligence, and, some word with a D for laws and governments, develop laws or something like that. But I'd put it more on a decency and diligence paradigm than the sensitization and safeguards. For most people, the internet is absolutely, completely safe. It's just loud. And that's very different. And I think it's very important that we internet street-proof kids to understand that mean names don't mean anything. It's kids, like, I think we need to start teaching in schools, dealing with the internet and exposing people. Like, it's almost like an allergy shot for the internet, that if you're prepared going in and you're taught what this stuff is and you're taught what this stuff isn't, you don't have, a really bad reaction when it happens. And if you don't have a really bad reaction when it happens and the thing doesn't blow up, it doesn't become life-ruining, it doesn't become humiliating. And, most of the time, I think the really serious, quote-unquote, cyber harassment, cyber bullying cases are extensions of real life things, right? Like the Rehtaeh Parsons case is a classic example of that. If that had just been faceless people on the internet, I think she'd still be around. It was the fact that it was her classmates and they were getting to her through her cell phone, like her personal cell phone number. That's a whole new degree of crazy, right? It's actually in her community. They were people she knew giving her a hard time about what she was going through. And that, I mean, sensitization, it has nothing to do with being sensitive and everything to do with understanding it's respect. It's respect, right? It's basic respect. You don't do that to someone. But that requires accountability. That requires accountability on behalf of each individual internet user. And personally, just in the people I talk to on a regular basis, I have seen a huge improvement in that way over the last year. I think if Gamergate taught gamers anything, it was a huge amount of empathy for what it's like to get 500 people yelling at you. And I've found that more and more people, because they got active in that controversy, they had it happen to them. And when they had it happen to them, all of a sudden their opinion changed on what it was and how serious it was. And those sort of repetitive mantras that didn't work went away, and people got much, much more real about what was going to improve the issue and what was going to solve some of these things. And things became much, much more productive. We had much better dialogues when that stuff settled down. Can we replicate that outside of video games? I think we can. Gamers are not aliens. Gamers are people. And we tend to be early adopters. We tend to be more fearless when it comes to social change and when it comes to sort of accepting differences. And I think that's why the fights happen in gaming first. But I think they are replicatable in the greater world. And I think that if people stopped stigmatizing and attacking gamers and actually talk to us, because we've been dealing with these issues through multiplayer gaming for a lot longer than most people have, I think that, we could start working with law enforcement. We could start working with politicians, and we could start working with each other, and we could start working with schools and community groups and youth centers and all this stuff, because we've done it. Like, those of us that have gone through, I mean, think about it. You got a bunch of us who everybody on the outside, it's a hate campaign, it's a harassment movement. Well, I'm the person that people claim was one of the targets of this thing, and I came through it okay. I came through it better, faster, stronger. So wouldn't I be one of those people that, maybe someone should talk to about strategies and harm reduction? Because you don't see it wearing me down. You don't see me complaining that it's a daily grind. I'm dealing. I got it. It strengthened me. I made new friends through it. People who hated me a year ago now have respect for me. And that's not because I suddenly changed my tune. I've been saying the same thing all along. It just took time. And I think gamers are the solution here. I think gamers have an immense amount of wisdom when it comes to the stuff that happens online. And I think that the stigmatization and the marginalization of the video game community is the world's loss. I think that if we drop the crap and we drop all this gaming causes violence, gaming causes sexism, gaming causes, warts and people to grow feathers and all these other nonsense things that'll come. If we drop that and we start using the knowledge base that comes from an industry that is about interacting with the games and each other, I think there's a wealth of knowledge from gamers. So that's sort of the takeaway from this thing, is that if we want to solve these issues, and I think we all want to solve these issues, I think that everybody I have talked to on this subject, even the people who, oppose what's going on university campuses right now and don't like that men are being denied due process rights and things like that. Everyone I have talked to thinks that harassment and violence committed against women is heinous and vile, and we need to stop it. The disagreement is how we reduce it. And, what resources to put where and what's the actual triage here. And that's a completely valid debate. And I think we have to start having that debate instead of trying to conflate it and running this negative PR campaign against each other. So that's my thoughts. But obviously, I'm very happy about this this development. And I hope you are too. I hope it gives you a little bit of hope out there that things are starting to change. Like I said, they would. And I hope that we can start creating, actual leaders in these sorts of things instead of reactionaries and instead of people who are very happy to, well, they're not happy, but content to make the problem take on a character and severity that isn't there, because there are people out there being exploited and there are people out there being hurt, and we have to help them. We do have to help them, but going after the wrong targets doesn't help anybody. It just hurts more people.